Celtics Talk Podcast is presented by 24autogroup.com. 11 locations across New England.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the whole new season of the Celtics Talk Podcast. And look who it is. Abby's back. We need to get her some reps on TV.
Yeah.
get her back up.
Lounging on the couch, folding laundry, playing with the kids. I'm ready.
How was your off season?
It was lovely. Very relaxing. Got in some trips, a lot of family time. How about you?
It was good until a couple days ago, or a day ago.
I am surprised to see you here. I know I did my wellness check yesterday after the news about Rob Williams being traded away.
I'm gonna show you my phone when we're done, and it's just hilarious because it's not even like friends and family. It's mostly people that I just like casually know. people from the Celtics organization. There was like a stream of, "Are you okay?
Are you alive? Are you gonna be okay?"
And so I mean, everyone, if you're watching this, you probably know the story by now. I talked to Rob at 8 a.m. on Sunday morning.
Which is crazy.
Which is just, it had been a long time sort of trying to find a day, and just ironically, we picked that one. And, if he knew.
Isn't it ironic?
Yeah, don't you think?
Don't you think?
And so, and then I said, our last day of freedom before, knowing today was going to be pretty crazy with media day. And so I went out on a golf course and tried to get away. And we were 6 holes in, and my phone buzzed, and with someone who knew what was going on, I said, "You got to be kidding me!" And so when my other people in my foursome saw me like rolling down the side of a hill crying, they were like, "Oh, they traded for Jrue Holiday." And
that's what you did. That was your reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't calling for the beer cart. Rolling down the hill.
Ironically, it was a Brewfest golf tournament, so I took the advantage of the proceedings and drowned my sorrows a little bit. But yeah, it's like the hard. I guess the easy part of it is I understand why they did it.
Yep.
But to bring this conversation full circle, Brad Stevens walks in as one of our first interviews of the day today, and I said, I'm a little bit pissed at you.
So just to give people context, here on Media Day, Chris Forsberg was doing sit-down, one-on-one interviews. So he got some FaceTime with the big guy calling the shots.
Everybody, and you always sort of.
What did he say when you said that?
He laughed. I think it was at first he was like trying to think why I would be potentially be mad at him, and then it became pretty easy. But yeah, it's just so funny because like the last thing I'm talking to Rob, I go, "Well, I'm gonna ask you all these same questions tomorrow." Yep, okay, talk to you then.
Not exactly.
Bye, best friend, and then bye, best friend, indeed. So,
how do you? I mean, can you step back?
Yes, and then that's
the big picture.
And so like I kept saying, Eddie House called me over the weekend, and he's like, "They're gonna do this deal, right? They're gonna trade for Jrue Holiday." And I was like, "Yeah, I think they're gonna definitely try." At that point, I thought they would do everything possible to do it without including Rob. And so I sat there. I said, I just can't see them trading Al, though.
I know.
That's
what went through my
You're
mind,
right,
too.
and Al has the same agent as Jrue Holiday, so that adds a whole like layer to it. But like, I don't think that would have been factored out if it was the only way to make this trade. And I just think it came down to, like, if you're Portland, you're going to ask for the best available young player on the Celtics.
That fits their timeline.
Yes, and so I understand why they did it. I understand that they're definitely, and I don't want to use the word better, but, like, their ceiling is higher, right? Because Jrue Holiday's an all-star, and Kristaps Porzingis is an all-star. And so it
was an area of need after trading away Marcus Smart as well.
True. So, Brogdon messed everything up by not being in that original deal. And then, but I won't hold it against him. And these are just tough decisions you have to make. And as long as the Celtics win a championship this year, and we get to chronicle that and be along for the ride, I will.
Chris is on board.
I'll say that Sean Grandy was one of the few people that managed to pick me up yesterday. He said, 1, wellness check, 2, the Blazers are always on League Pass when we're done our games.
That's true.
And I was like,
the West Coast team.
Yeah,
You'll still get to see him.
I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be a Portland Trailblazer fan and that they would be my League Pass team. But here I am. So if you can just give me like a history lesson on Blazerdom and
I love the Portland Trailblazers. That's where I was before here. Much different team without Dame, obviously going through some changes. But a lot of history and Bill Walton, some Celtics connections there. So
maybe we have to take a trip. We do have to go see Rob at some point, right?
Absolutely.
Because I'll be there.
I
don't think he comes back here until like April.
Oh, man.
Which is probably for the best. I'm going to need some time.
That's true. It's probably better to go cold turkey
okay.
than to have it just kind of slowly pulled away from
So
you.
besides texting me and making sure I was not, on a bridge somewhere, what went through your mind when you heard the trade went down?
Wow, the Celtics are all in.
Yeah.
And how exciting is that? I think that when the rumors were going around that they were going to get Dame, I was having flashbacks to last season when the entire world shifted right before Media Day.
Yep.
So I thought that was going to happen again. And then when the news broke yesterday about Jrue, it just felt right. I mean, I feel like this is a piece that was missing. It is, as soon as Dame went to the Bucks, everyone started asking, well, who's going to guard Dame now that you don't have Marcus Smart? And so Jrue Holiday is the answer. And I think that he is just a guy who no one has a bad thing to say about. So I think fitting him into this locker room.
Yeah.
But what was apparent today at Media Day with all of these new faces, number one, is that it's insane to me that it is only Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown who are left from the Celtics that went to the bubble. And that played for the Eastern Conference Finals in the bubble.
I mean, that's ridiculous. It's just 3 years.
Crazy. And yes, and just the culture shift that has occurred this summer.
Well, you came in right with my last interview of the day was Kristaps, and I kept thinking, I'm like, wow, a lot has happened even just since he's gotten here.
Yes.
He is the 8th longest tenured Celtics. There's 7
I heard
players
you say
left
that to him, yeah.
from the 2022 finalists, and I mean, Luke Cornett's one of those guys, and Peyton, and but it's
and amazing
jarring.
that Peyton is the one.
Right.
is
And
one of the
Peyton
guys
somehow
who's left.
still
Yes.
here. But yeah, I think you're right. Like the overarching theme today was this is a team that was certainly in the mix before.
Yep.
The Bucks forced their hand a little bit and said, if you want to keep up with us, you got to take another big swing. And Brad didn't wait around. And it was clear when you heard right after that the Celtics were interested. It was a clear signal to me that they we're going to make this happen. And so, like I said, I had a couple days.
It was
to
immediate too.
Yeah,
and
there was no hemming and hawing, and very
No.
rarely do you hear the Celtics sort of put it out into the world
Right.
that they could be interested. But yeah, everybody was
Brad
sort of-
delivered that message too in his larger press conference, and that Jrue Holiday is a guy who you go out and do this for. And also, he mentioned, as you watch all the machinations going on around the league, and they were very aware that if Dame did end up going to Milwaukee, the numbers that would have to be met, and that Jrue could become available, and they were working towards this.
And I forget who it was. Maybe it was. I'm gonna forget now because all these interviews blend together. But I was talking to people about GM Brad, and maybe it was Al who said he's just always thinking 2 or 3 moves ahead of everybody else now. Not a lot of us were sitting there saying there's a chance that Dame goes to the Bucks, which would open up this Jrue possibility and all that. But the Celtics spend a lot of time trying to figure out what that step is so that you're ready and you're having preliminary conversations about if this were to happen or if this is the type of player we'd be looking for. And I just think they had the groundwork in place to be ready to pounce. And didn't mess around. Didn't want to have to go into Media Day with Malcolm Brogdon here and answering tough questions. And so
That is one thing that they saved us from having to do, having those tough conversations with Malcolm Brogdon about how tough this summer was. But with the Jrue Holiday move, like I said, Celtics all in on this season.
Yep.
And it was something where, you can go into the numbers, salary cap, everything, the Celtics now in the
Not
second
great.
apron and all of that. Right. And they say they want to sign him long term. But
I don't. I was telling you how it was going to be untenable.
How does that work? Yeah.
So, it's going to be tough. So it means you're going to have to deal with the restrictions of the second apron, and you're going to spend a ton of money, and you're going to be able to retain a lot of the guys that you have in house now. But it's just going to mean Wick's going to pay a lot of money, and you're just not going to be able to say it doesn't work for whatever reason. It's going to be much more difficult to make a deal that. Where you're able to send out the right amount of salary and get this guy back. And it's just pretty much you're committing to what you've got now, which maybe that's fine because you've got 4 all-star level players. You got Derek White, who's in the conversation for being, much more than he was in recent seasons. And, you got enough depth to be in the mix. There's no reason this team shouldn't be there at the end. It's just, I can't sit here and say I've spent months going. They just can't carry Malcolm Brogdon, $22.5 million, and now here comes Jrue at $36 million, and I'm like, I don't understand how this all works, but yeah, it's just going to be expensive. And
you don't understand.
no,
Heaven help the rest of us.
I go back to it. The bottom line is that 2 years from now, when Tatum, not this summer when Tatum signs, when his deal kicks in 2 summers. That's when it gets really interesting because you're going to have so many different guys at such a high level of salary, and you're probably going to have to pick but even before then, you're probably gonna have to pick your path and just. But you know what? If you win a
We're
title,
not there yet.
No,
Let's not.
No,
Yes.
But not even that. It's just if you win a title this year, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Like
it was all worth
then
it.
you figure it out after that. But how are you feeling overall after this?
And that's what I would say, and that's kind of something that was my biggest question going into media day is there a different level of urgency? Being in Boston, it is no question the expectation is championship or bust. But now that all of these things have been done, that the Celtics have clearly gone all in, giving up 2 first-round picks, changing your entire losing the heart and soul of your team.
Robert Williams.
And changing up that locker room entirely. Like, this is it. It's now or never, particularly after what we just mentioned about Jrue Holiday.
Yep. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to play you some sound from Media Day, some of the highlights of the day, and then we'll talk about our biggest takeaways when we come back.
I didn't realize how big Deuce would be, but
a star.
I didn't envision that happening, but it's gotten so much more fun as he's gotten older, right? And to be able to more and more understand, what I'm doing in the games. He asked me the other day, do you have a game yet? Do you have a game yet? So he's excited. He loves coming to the Garden. He loves running around. He loves coming to the back and playing with the guys. So seeing him grow up here and the relationship that he's had and how much fun he has being around, it's really cool to see that, we growing up in Boston together, essentially.
You said this summer in that same story with Jeff Goodman that you've just started feeling that real connection with the city, kind of like Deuce is probably feeling that connection with the city because he's really growing up here. Why did that just start now? And can you describe what that feeling is of having that connectivity of where you're playing and where you're calling home now?
When I got here, I was 19.
Yeah.
All right, I was.
Couldn't even drink.
Yeah, I was a baby. I was 19. I was coming into a new city, starting a new job. Deuce was born 3 months later. I was a real skinny, quiet kid. And for me, I just always identified with being from St. Louis, right? It's like I didn't pick to come here. I just, somebody told me to come here. So it was hard at first. And I think just when you think about it, I bought my first home in Boston. I bought my first car. My son was born in Boston. I've spent almost 7 years of my life. I'm 25. That's it's a big chunk of my life in the city of Boston, and I've grown to build a lot of relationships away from the organization, right? Like people that I know in Boston, and I've had so many great memories here that, I would say over the last year and a half or two that I've really, felt like I was a part of Boston, and that's a hell of a feeling. Jrue's a great player, great person. I had the privilege of being on the same team with the Olympic team 2 years ago. We won a gold medal. Obviously, he's won a championship, and he's, as respected as anybody in this league. It's just how he carries himself, how he plays on both ends of the ball. So very fortunate and lucky to have him. But on the same side, right, I spent 5 or 6 years with Rob. That's somebody I was really, really close with, somebody that was a big part of the success that we had as an organization over the last couple of years. So to see him get traded, right, is tough. Right? Somebody you grow, build a relationship with, and things happen fast, right? Nobody saw that coming, and so you feel for that, as well as Malcolm. He was only here for a year, but right, it was a great season that we all had last year. Somebody that I really respect, and he was a true professional. So it's always great gaining new teammates, talented guys, but it's always tough, seeing your friends, transition to another team.
And that same thing happened with the Porzingis trade. Obviously, you got to say goodbye to Marcus Smart, but you do bring in a 7'3" guy who can score on the perimeter, post up, run pick and rolls with you. How do you see him affecting what you and Jaylen are doing on a daily basis, and what does that open up that you might not have had the past couple years?
Yeah, I think he just adds another dynamic of versatility, right? As tall as he is, he can stretch the floor. I don't think we've necessarily had a presence, as tall as he is, that is as talented he is on the offensive end. And, I'm really excited about that. Somebody that can push the floor, spot up and shoot threes, take it down to the post. Something that we really haven't had to that level right, since I've been here. So I'm really, really excited, to have him on our team.
I know this offseason you also put in some work with Paul Pierce. We have some footage of that. How was that, just getting a chance to work out with him and maybe learn from him as well?
It was great. I spent every day with Paul for like 3.5, 4 weeks. And he would come in the gym every morning, and he would work out with me in the weight room, and he would follow us to the gym while I worked out with my trainer, Jrue, and he would watch. And it was just cool to have him around because, even he started to get motivated. Paul lost like 15, 18 pounds.
You could see it, too.
That's what he said. While he was out there. And you could tell it was motivation for him, and he kind of felt younger. And, it was an honor for us to have him around. And he just, in a sense, became like one of the guys. And it was great to have him around. He told stories. I asked him questions. And, it was a big part of the summer. And look forward to, him coming to training camp and stuff like that. And, seeing him around more often.
Was there one piece of advice that maybe stands out to you that he told you this summer, or maybe a story that really sticks out when you think back to that time?
I think just, all the little things that he took away from his championship team in 2008, and just, how close you have to be as a unit, and, how you need other guys to feel important, and which they are, but just how you need everybody on the team, to help win a championship. Because one series, somebody might be the X factor that's, different from the next series, but, they all add up. And just all the stories that he was telling me, and every team meeting and things they did off the court as a group, and just things that made that 08 team so special. My voice, my presence is felt. And during the games, huddles, locker room, practice, film, I speak up. Everybody may not see it. It may not be the loudest. But, I speak my mind. I listen to guys, and, guys listen to me. So it's a mutual respect thing. And is it pressure? Yeah. I mean, we got a really good team. We got really good players. People expect us to get to the championship and win, and we don't. We didn't necessarily meet expectations. It's a handful of teams each year that, realistically can probably win the championship, and we're in that mix. So, that's what we're aiming for, and that's what we should be aiming for.
When you are at the top, you guys, all NBA players, pretty much can do everything out on the court. What specifically did you focus on this summer that you felt like, hey man, I know I'm really, really, really good, but there are some things that I feel that I'm deficient in, and I need to attack that? What was one of those things, or what was those things that you attacked, if any?
It was really everything. I think sort of how I've always approached growth is, just look in the mirror and try to get better and push yourself. So I push myself at everything. It's probably the hardest I worked in the summer, And
that's saying a lot.
Right. So
you get better every year.
Exactly. So I'm excited. There was a lot of talk around, how we ended the season. And, I'm ready to come out and show the world that, one, I can get a whole lot better. And two, I ain't played my best basketball yet.
You're the longest tenured Celtic now. Marcus, unfortunately, is no longer with the team, but that does open up an opportunity for you and Jayson to have even more of an influence from a leadership perspective. Why do you embrace that, and what is your leadership style? Because I know you and Jayson are not the guys that are screaming in the locker room or screaming on the court. That's not how you guys do it. So what's your leadership style?
I don't know. You might see me.
Yeah? All right, let's go.
Different this year.
It might be a little different this year.
All right.
No, I don't mind. I always want to go with the flow of the team. So we've always had a lot of voices kind of going on in the locker room, and even last year we had Grant, Blake, Smart, all very vocal guys. So you don't always want to overstep or say too much, but I think this year we got more quieter guys. So I think there is some room for some voices to speak up, and I don't mind being one of them.
You talked about him guarding you. I want to know what your take is on what he brings to the table defensively, and why is he so good at that end of the floor?
Yeah, he plays with like a force that people don't necessarily understand. Like certain players, have like just a force, a gravity about him, you know what I mean? Especially when the game is on the line in the playoffs, his will, his relentlessness, he can really push his team and propel his team forward that like some other players don't possess. Jrue has that energy level that like when he wants to win and he's all in, it can be hard to beat a man like that. Jrue is fantastic. I know a tremendous amount of respect from Jrue, from somebody who he's guarded and I've had to guard. It's just he plays with a certain force that you could just feel. He's just super solid, man, and just as a competitor, he's an assassin. So to be playing alongside, I think it would be a tremendous honor.
Honestly, I think it comes with age. I've been around the league a little bit, and at the end, that's what matters, is winning. If you put up, I had different opportunities to go somewhere else and maybe have a bigger role and maybe even make more money, but I wanted to come here. I wanted to come to Boston just because of the opportunity to play in such a iconic organization with great players that are already here, that are very close, and hopefully I can come in here and bring more to that. And that idea of that itself just was, I didn't need to hear anything else. And now that I'm here, it's an incredible feeling.
Brad mentioned that you've been practicing and working out. How's your foot feeling?
Yeah, feeling great. No limitations. Just the medical staff did a great job of loading up slowly, and now as I'm getting close to the training camp, we start tomorrow, I'm perfectly fine and ready to go. So I think it started because I changed shoes during the summer, and I think that's what kind of got the foot a little bit sensitive, and I didn't pay too much attention to it. I kind of kept working out, kept playing, because the training camp was about to start for a national team, and I was actually in great shape and feeling good. Just the foot was a little bit bothering me, so I told the medical staff, and they told me to rest for a few days, and we just couldn't get that much like progress in such a short time. So the smart decision was to sit out and make sure the foot actually gets to recover before I start the season. And that's what I did. It was a really, really tough decision. I know it may not seem for you guys like it was, but it was such a big deal for me not to be able to play for my country back in the World Cup. Really like hurt my soul. So, but I knew it was the right decision, I'm glad I made that tough decision in that moment. And now I'm as I said, 100% to start the season.
I mean, not necessarily different, but like to answer your first question about how you handle expectations, like no one's going to have higher expectations than I have for myself and then that we have as a player. And like we know the end goal is to win a championship. That's why everybody does what they do. That's why we spend the entire season away from our families. That's why we have positive emotions, negative emotions. At the end of the day, it's like we're all trying to achieve something that's really, really hard. And so the expectations are the expectations. I always say, like, I'd rather be in a city like this that has high expectations instead of going somewhere where there are no expectations. So I coached at a level where when you lost the game, it wasn't on the bottom line and nobody cared. And that was fun. But at the end of the day, you didn't get just that connection. And so to me, the expectation should be there. And the second piece of, like, I didn't do anything different as much as, like, for me, I try to grow just as much of the person as I do as a coach. And I think for coaches and players, like, who you are comes out on the court. And just putting yourself in a constant environment of growth, of learning, pushing yourself to the highest of mental, physical, or emotional limits can try and simulate what it's like trying to go through an NBA season. And going through an NBA season is really difficult. It's really hard. But it's fun. And so can you simulate that in the off season? Yeah, I mean, I think things will change a little bit from the beginning. Obviously going into the off season and most of the preseason having a general idea of what the roster is and then, changing it a little bit. But I think it's changed for good. I think both were good. I think the roster before and the roster now is good. And so just more focusing on each guy's strengths. And obviously Jrue has high character. plays with a great mindset and has the reputation, of being a tough defender and somebody that can really change the game on both ends of the floor. So just looking to plug that into, kind of the roster that we have.
Joe, I know it just happened and you've got to go through camp and see, but have you given any thought initially to how you might start the games? Would you go with Jrue and Derek in the backcourt, or would you go, double big?
Yeah, I mean, we put thought into that. I think with the roster that we have and the season, I thought something that was good for us last year was our ability to go back and forth of double big and playing small. And so put thought into it. Haven't really come across kind of what the best way to go about that is yet. But I want to be as open-minded as we can, knowing we have a lot of flexibility, in the backcourt and in the front court.
When he got traded to Portland, is that when you first picked up? Because he wasn't staying in Portland. We all knew he wasn't staying in Portland. Was that when you were like, hey, we got to try to do whatever we can to get him? Is that how that process went?
I've known Joe Cronin for a long time. We've talked several times over the past few years and have had really transparent conversations about, what we think of each other's teams and what we're kind of and know what guys are like. When it became more of a question of where Dame might go, I think you started to think about, okay, who would end up going to Portland that they may not keep as part of their group. And so when you start doing the math on the money around the league, you can limit it to maybe 10 to 15 guys. Mm-hmm. And so we were having those discussions in case something came up. Didn't know how it would all shake out. Have tried to get Jrue Holiday on the Celtics since I've been the coach. I know I would go into Danny's office every year and be like, hey, can we get Jrue Holiday somehow? And so when that hit, yes, the whole office walks in and says, is there a way to get Jrue Holiday here? And so then we just start working on it. And it's hard because there's a lot of good teams, a lot of that have a lot of great assets and great players, and you may get them, you may not. Got to pay a good price for things, right? Like, that's the way it goes. We're trying to win a championship, trying to be as good as we can be. We certainly did, and 2 picks and 2 good players, and that is a real price. And but that's how good we think Jrue is, and we're still in pretty good shape from the standpoint of what we can do moving forward with picks. I mean, we've got a ton of seconds now, and I think we can still move a couple of firsts, and we have control of all of our firsts with the exception of the swap in 28 and the 29. So, we're here to try to be as good as we can be. Yeah, really hard. I've said this to our staff today, like, those phone calls are, I'll probably be like somewhere else in 10 years hiding, right? Those are like the hardest phone calls. Rob, it was such a pleasure to watch Rob grow. When he first got here, he had a long way to go. But he had a great attitude. He was a great teammate. And got a lot better, over time. I know Portland's super excited to get him, and that was hard. It was really hard. Guys like Jrue Holiday are the only reason you ever entertain, moving on from a guy like Rob. That's really tough. Malcolm had to be included in the trade because of the money aspect of how these trades work, right? But I've talked about it before. Malcolm had every right to be frustrated with us in the middle of the summer. That said, I was not concerned with regard to if Media Day started today and Jrue Holiday didn't become available, that he was going to be a professional, because that's what he is. He's a good guy. He's a good teammate, and he understands the business aspect of this. And so, I think he'll do really well as well. He feels good. He's ready to roll, and we're thankful for the year he had with us.
All right, what was the clip or the soundbite or when you go home and someone asks you what was the biggest thing at Media Day that you're gonna want to talk about?
Well, the biggest thing or the funniest?
Well,
moments?
either you can go any direction you want with this.
The funniest moment was Jordan Walsh, all 19 years of him, I learned today, born in 2004.
No way depressing.
So he apparently has become fast friends with Al Horford, which no one better in the league to have as your vet. They apparently met through Charlie Villanueva and connected before the draft. But he said that Al has given him an assignment, movie assignments to watch, and young Jordan Walsh had never seen Friday before this week. How does that happen? And then Boys in the Hood, he said he watched. And then his next assignment is The Godfathers.
Oh, wow.
And that's straight from Al.
Has there like been a movie or a reference you've had to learn that you said you weren't even born yet that you've been assigned to learn or something like that to relate to Al or relate to older people?
Yeah. Me and Al were talking about this last night, actually. So first, they told me I don't have my black card because I didn't know what Friday was. So I went and watched the first one. Then I watched Boys in the Hood. And Al told me I need to watch Godfather 1 and 2. And he was like, yeah, they're old, they're long, but they're so good. And I was like, okay, bro, whatever you say, Al, like I'm gonna invest. So yeah, he was like, once you get that, then you can come talk to me again. And I was like, all right.
So good movie recommendations. It's disheartening. It's like we always think of Jayson Tatum as 19 years old, perpetually 19 years old, but Jordan Walsh coming in.
And I'm trying to do the math. Like it's probably Friday had been out for like 10 years before he was even born, so you can give him the pass. But I mean, we still watch the classics.
Cable, like, doesn't it just come up on
TV
100%. From time to time?
I mean, maybe watch Friday After Next or whatever
that hurt my heart a lot. I also really enjoyed. I shouldn't say enjoyed, Kristaps Porzingis speaking about not being able to play for his home country. And he just said that hurt my soul to make that decision. And you could see it, you could feel it. But on the plus side, he says 100%.
And
I thought it was interesting. He said it was just a shoe problem. He was wearing the wrong shoes to start working out in the summer. Oh, you roll your eyes at that.
No. I mean, I'm on record as saying that I never thought the foot thing was very much of a concern. I think after the Boston Celtics watched Danilo Gallinari tear an ACL last year, that their hope, and especially after extending Kristaps Porzingis for 2 years, was to keep him as healthy as possible. And so sure, like I'm sure it wasn't nothing, but it was incredible restraint on his part to be able to, because that matters to those guys. And like I think, especially in an Olympic year, like next year, I don't think you can tell him if Latvia's there that he can't go, right? Like because it depends on his health too, right? Well, we'll see how this year goes and all that, but. That's really important to those guys, and so it shows a lot about what this team thinks it can do. That Kristaps was willing to take himself out of that mix, and I do agree. It's great to hear that he's healthy. I mean, does anyone really come in with any sort of malady? It's crazy.
Everyone, 100%.
Well, we were all ready to overreact to Malcolm Brogdon being.
And I mean, knock on wood. Who knows how long that'll last? I have two more.
Ooh.
Okay. Jaylen Brown went with Derek White to Boulder over the weekend to watch the Buffs and primetime play against USC. And Jaylen let it out that, well, I am,
irrationally,
Colorado Buffalo alum. So I did ask the question. But he mentioned Derek White and the new haircut drinking.
Said he was drunk at 10 a.m.?
Drunk at 10 a.m.
What'd you think of Boulder? It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, who would have thought?
Buff him up, Gary.
Who would have thought? Boulder, Colorado. Went to the game. It was a 10 a.m. game. I'm with D. White. I meet up until D. White invites me out. So I come with him. I meet him on campus. D. White's, he's drunk 10 a.m. in the morning.
There's altitude.
This is part of it's tailgating, it's college. So I'm with D. White. So I'm like, do as the Romans do, right? So, me and D. White had a great time. In Boulder, Dion, what he's doing down there is fantastic. I invited him to a Celtics game, so maybe when their season is over, maybe he'll come up or come to a game or something like that. But what he's done with that program is amazing because, I've been to Boulder before that, and it didn't look like how it looked when I was there a couple of days ago, so we'll just say that.
But I will say it's at altitude. It's really... It's not hard to get drunk at altitude.
I think
in Derek's defense,
I asked Derek about it when he came into our room, and I believe he just said something like, "Yes, the vibes were high."
The vibes.
Which
the vibes are good in Boulder right now.
In Boulder,
Folsom Field, beautiful.
High indeed.
First, JB said you were going pretty hard at 10 in the morning before the game. Was he able to keep up? Go first.
Hey, man, the vibes were high. The vibes are high in Boulder right now.
So, but that was a cool experience because the Jaylen was talking about that Pierce and Garnett were there, and Will Ferrell was there, and like they just kept bumping into all these like superstars. And Jaylen in particular was like really excited that what Dion is doing at CU, and maybe they should win some more. But other than that, like there's certainly some hype around that school.
Yep. Buff them up, go CU.
Didn't you just lose 2 games in a row?
It's the vibes are good. The vibes are high. Don't bring down the vibes. Forsberg. And then
what else you got?
My last one.
I'm glad you're carrying this because I don't have a lot of takeaways.
Is just you have all your one-on-ones, your little secret interviews that we are hoarding.
You'll see them rolled out on the Celtics podcast.
Exactly right time. Is Jayson Tatum and his maturity and the way that he spoke about his former teammates and Marcus and Rob and the emotions of losing those guys, but also looking ahead and understanding the task that lies ahead of this group. And that was the overwhelming message, is that while everyone understands that championship expectations are absolutely what this season is about, they are dedicated and focusing on winning the day making the most of every opportunity.
Did you see Jayson Tatum was listed at 210 pounds on the
He said he gained about 12 pounds.
So, well, first
straight muscle.
Been eating those small wins or whatever candy things.
I've not been eating the candy. I hope that's not.
I have been. I haven't had gummy bears in a while, and then there was a pack as I was getting done my photo shoot. I crushed the entire bag.
Sour ones.
Sour. They're delicious.
You did crush that whole bag.
Not yet. There's some left. Okay. There's some left. Don't shame me. But Tatum did even when he walked in, he just looked. And you forget because he came in, he was so real thin and he needed to grow in.
He was 19 years old.
I know, and that's why when I look at Jordan Walsh, I say, man, imagine 5 years from now for Jordan Walsh. And so Tatum just continues to get better at being in front of the cameras and answering questions and being in that role. And I agree. He said every right thing. The one moment I'll tell you about from our interviews that will probably be my favorite moment is I asked Joe Mazzulla about the photo booth that he took at Marcus Smart's wedding. And he was very upset that picture was released on the interwebs, and he wouldn't name the perpetrator, Jayson Tatum. But he said what happened was that they must have been, they tell you to do 3 different poses, right? So they're like, act tough, and Joe was like this, and then somehow it transitioned to the act goofy one or whatever, and Joe's still a little bit like.
But that's Joe. That is Joe's.
You're right, exactly.
Yeah. That's the problem with photos. It's you could lie so much through a photo. I was told we took a serious one, which I enjoyed.
And then you got caught in between, right?
And then I got caught in between. So we were told to take a silly one and it won't get out. And then now look at me.
Have you figured out the leak? Who do we have to chase somebody
down?
I got
people working on it.
Were you the one who sent out the photo of Joe in the photo booth at Marcus Smart's wedding?
Yeah, that was.
Did you ask for his approval before sending the photo?
No, I maybe should have, but no, I didn't. We had fun. We had a good time.
And so he admitted that part of learning how to do this job is dealing with outside noise and social media and stuff like that. And
when your players blow up your spot.
Yeah. You're just trying to have a good time at Marcus Smart's wedding, and next thing you know, social media is like, what's going on here? People thought that Brad looked weird because he had kind of chin up and all that. Right. And so yeah. Look.
But seriously, Jayson and Jaylen, it's on their shoulders to step up and assume even more of a leadership role this season.
And
so far,
tweeting photos of your coach looking like he wasn't ready for the photo is not a great first step for your leader. But no, I agree. You feel like they understand the magnitude of the moment too, and the understanding, and that's going to be what we're going to talk about every single day. The expectations are there. This team has not always responded well to expectations and fallen a little bit short. Maybe Jrue Holiday can show them the way.
We're going to end it on that. Let's talk about some small wins. I'm just kidding.
Small wins would have been.
I'm just looking for candy.
Small wins would have been if Tatum showed up with candy because I was so hungry,
true.
and those gummy bears felt the wrath of hungry Forsberg.
Missed opportunity.
I'm also going to go drown. Maybe I'm just eating away my feelings completely
That's
to bring
true.
this podcast full
You
circle.
do what you need to do, Forsberg.
I appreciate
Self-care.
you. I appreciate
Do
you.
you.
Rob, I'm going to go home and watch Blazers Media Day now so that I can make sure he's doing okay. I need everybody to go like, subscribe. We have a special on. It might have already aired by the time you watch this, but 8 p.m. NBC Sports Boston, Best of Media Day. Keep checking back. We get so much content coming.